Welcome back to the next episode of Trade Talks. We're here with our favorite guest. Second favorite guest.
Must be a short list.
Third favorite guest.
It's a short list. Yeah.
Trey Tucker, North Central Florida Air Conditioning. He's been with us a couple times, teaching us all the things we should know about our homes, answer some questions. A big question that's been coming in to all you guys, and it's a popular one. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
What is the best brand of air conditioner out there?
That might be the number one question. Yeah, I was wondering when that was going to pop up. Well, that's a loaded question. Basically, there is no best brand of air conditioner.
That's like saying there's no best car. No one's going to believe that.
But is there? You know, basically.
I don't know, are you a Ford, Chevy guy?
I'm a Ford guy, but don't cut that out.
Okay.
We'll
cut that
Chevy.
out.
You're a Chevy guy, right? No. Anyway, basically, if you don't take my word for it. Go to Consumer Reports, and they'll tell you the same thing. That basically, what matters more than the actual brand is the install. The install matters far more than whatever names on the outside. And really, if you even dig into the compressors are the same, the capacitors are the same, the contactors are the same. They're all made by the same manufacturers. They're assembled and marketed basically by the different brand names. So if you do a good install, most of the modern equipment will really hold up well, but the install is what matters the most.
So when you're talking about the install, you're talking about when it comes off the truck and ultimately gets installed in your house, either in the closet or the attic or outdoors or whatever it is. What do you mean by like a good install? Like, I mean, it's not like I just plug it in the wall. So what does that mean? A good install. If I was watching you guys as a homeowner, how could I tell, yeah, I got a good install?
Well, the first thing, and it all kind of starts, not the beginning to explain the entire install process, but the first thing that is the heart of a great install is a really good evacuation. So you want to make sure that first off, the lines are either replaced or super clean. The lines being the copper refrigerant
coming from the inside. Okay.
So you have a big line, a small line. Both of those need to be flushed. They need to be pressure tested. They need to be cleaned and or replaced.
All right. So we're gonna slow down back.
Okay.
Flushed. It sounds like an industry term. I'm a homeowner. I have no idea what that. I mean, I flush my toilet. I don't think that's what you're implying. What do you mean by flushing my line?
Thanks for bringing me back down to earth, Ray. So on the inside of the copper, stuff doesn't adhere or stick to the copper. Older systems use an older refrigerant with a different type of oil that's not compatible with the newer stuff. That's the first thing that we're really trying to get rid of. We use the old oil with the new system. Those two things interact. 3-5 years down the line, your compressor goes out, which is the heart of the system, and you're done. So we have to make sure that we get those back to bare, clean copper right off the bat. Make sure there's no oil, no moisture adhered or stuck to the inside of the lines. That is what flushing does. We're putting a chemical down it, we're soaking the insides of the lines, and we're blowing that out with dry nitrogen to make sure that that copper is as close to new as we can get it.
So either new lines altogether, which is your best option, or very, very minimal flushing it out to get rid of all the contamination.
Absolutely. And so the replacing of the copper or not replacing the copper, that's a tricky subject because it does add expense to the job. Everybody has a budget, and we're happy to work with them whatever we can. On the other side, some of that older copper, as long as it's been installed right to begin with, so you don't have it rubbing on anything, you don't have it, with nails through it, etc. Some of that old copper is very, very thick, and is actually better than some of the stuff we could buy today. So we don't always replace the lines, but that is industry standard where if we can replace them, that's a great thing to do.
All right. So then you said flush it. And then, okay, so what's another thing that I could observe as a homeowner? You said something like evacuate it?
Yep.
Everyone get out, fire.
Yep. So what we're trying to do when we're flushing is we're removing the oils, any type of contaminants, but also moisture. Moisture is the #1 killer of compressors on AC systems. It even can corrode the insides of the lines sometimes. Before and or after, it takes out the heart of the system.
How do I get moisture? Why would it be wet?
So we're breathing right now, and it's February, give or take, and you have moisture in the air. In July, we can have 80%
So the
relative
humidity, actually
Exactly.
humidity in the air causes damage.
Exactly. So you can, if it's full of air, you have moisture in that, and believe it or not, quite a bit. Oxygen itself isn't great to have in there. It basically messes up the compression cycle. But the moisture, if you don't get that out and do a very, very deep vacuum. So when you evacuate, you pull a vacuum on the system, a really, really deep vacuum, not your Hoover, but specialized equipment. We put specialized gauges on there. We bring it down to really, really low negative pressure. And that boils off any of the moisture, pulls any of the moisture out, gets any of the oxygen or air out of the lines. So when we open and release a refrigerant, we have nothing but clean virgin refrigerant on clean copper lines, and nothing in there is going to interact or tear something apart.
All right, so I want to make sure I'm flushing lines.
Yep.
I want to make sure I'm vacuuming lines. You said something about pressure testing or something.
Yep. So not going step by step, but to back up so after you flush or clean the lines and before you evacuate or vacuum out the lines, you put a very, very high pressure dry nitrogen test on the system. Let's make sure that we don't have any small micro leaks. Let's make sure we don't have any large leaks. We want to stress test that copper. We want to stress test the coil that we just installed. Make sure that we don't have any leaks that's going to cause expense or damage down the line. So we let that hold. We watch that number for a while, and you can see them pull out a big black bottle. They put a high pressure test on it. They wait, watch the numbers, make sure, go check all their joints, make sure that it's a clean install. It's not going to cost money down the line.
All right. Anything else that I, as a homeowner, I could observe that maybe that I could tell them doing right, or is there anything I could see that that's obviously not right? Is there a red flag that would give me concerns?
I would say that going back to the installs, so if someone takes the time to make sure that their electrical connections are pretty, they're neat, they're tidy, that would lead me to believe that inside everything they're doing, they're paying attention to. So if they're paying attention to neat and tidy work, especially on the electrical side, then they're probably taking the time to hook it up right to begin with. Another red flag is your high voltage coming into the inside or the outside. Make sure those connections are secure. Make sure that there's no big gaps or they're coming in at weird angles. Those things are designed to go
Rubbing on anything or
exactly. Those things are designed to go in square. They're designed to be watertight. That's something you could definitely look for as a homeowner.
All right. So you said brand is not as important as the install.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I'm hearing is I can get a relatively unknown brand or what someone would consider a cheaper brand and install it correctly, and that may outperform like the best brand not installed correctly.
Absolutely. So if you had the cheapest thing you could possibly buy and you paid a reputable company to do a really, really good install, and those aren't necessarily cheap, that would absolutely outlast high end, what people have been led to believe is like the best on the market that was slapped in by a guy in a box truck that he bought from Craigslist. So
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
All right. But what I'm not hearing you say is brand doesn't matter at all. So where does brand come into my decision making?
Absolutely. So
obviously install is the most important, but then where does brand come into that question?
Once you find a company that you trust to do a good install and has a reputation for doing a good install, then we can move to brand. But what really matters on the brand side is number one right off the bat is warranty. So warranty, is that just a sales tactic to get you in the door because, oh, well, they have a warranty? And then are they going to deny every claim possible because there's no way our equipment can break, which is absolutely false. So warranty is the biggest thing. So, we don't sell based on brand at North Central Florida Air Conditioning, but we do carry Daikin. We're a Daikin Elite dealer. We've been dealing with them for years now, and they've treated us really, really well. The reason we go with them is a couple fold. So I can explain why we typically install Daikin 99% of the time. And that's going to be because they honor their warranty. So when a part breaks, typically they're not fighting us, and they're like, okay, here's a new part. They also offer 12 years versus 10. Most manufacturers offer 10. Some in the past are 5, 7, 10. Daikin stands behind their stuff for us for an extra 2 years.
Which is 20%. I mean,
that's nothing to laugh at all.
Especially at the end of these units, especially in Florida.
Yeah, we definitely have like the worst climate for air conditioners in Florida. Depending on if you're in the coast, center of the state, it's still way worse than like Montana. But yeah, so they stand behind their stuff for an extra 2 years. They're 12 years. That matters to us. They're not fighting us. They trust us to, well, listen, the compressor went out. We had a problem with that particular compressor. It's not common, but it happens. And we get a new one. They also offer anywhere from 1 year unit replacement outdoor, which means that if anything major component wise fails, they'll just go ahead and give us a whole new outdoor unit, which is a lot better than trying to Frankenstein stuff together if possible. So they'll do that 1 year on the lower end stuff. You step up, they'll replace it for 6 years. On some of the flagship stuff, if anything goes majorly wrong with an outdoor unit, they'll replace that for an entire 12 years on the outdoor unit. So that's one of the benefits. They also offer a 12-year labor warranty. So basically, the way warranty works, and you're probably familiar with this, but the way the warranty works, you have a parts warranty, and so let's say it's year 9 on your system. You got a pretty good life out of it already, but it's not bit the dust, and a major component goes out. They'll give you that component, and you'll save anywhere from $300 to $1,200, maybe more on the part itself, but the refrigerant and the labor aren't covered, and so you're still on the hook in year 9 for quite a bit of a repair. Daikin offers labor warranties to cover that, so you could have zero cost. Not to be, completely all about Daikin, I just want to highlight the fact of what really matters when you're choosing a brand, and warranty is at the top of the list.
So you mentioned that parts availability. You said, getting them standing behind the part, but actually being able to get a part. I know you went through COVID and getting parts, and we're still kind of recovering, getting parts. So what does that actually mean, part availability? Let me give you an example. We bought a brand new microwave wall unit or whatever, and within 2 years it broke. And we have now waited 4.5 weeks for this capacitor to come in. So I won't name any brand, but 4.5 weeks of being down on a brand new unit is a little frustrating.
They're messing up your popcorn game, aren't they?
They are definitely, and Super Bowl's right around the corner here. So that, that went to my soul when you said part availability. So explain what you mean in the HVAC world, because in the middle of July, if I'm out of AC for 4 weeks for a capacitor, the little tiny part that I would assume is coming from China, I don't think I'd be very happy with you.
No, you wouldn't be very happy with me, and it wouldn't necessarily be my fault, but I'm going to take the brunt of that. And that's completely
Well, you're
fine.
the one standing in front of me, so I get to yell at you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you did hit the nail on the head. COVID was challenging for everybody. Even the best companies in the world had supply chain issues. What I can say when I talk about parts availability is that if they offered a 100-year warranty, but then it took 10 years to get the part, it wouldn't matter. Going back to the brand that we typically sell and that we have a great relationship with, just to use it as an example, Daikin has a distribution center or a warehouse in Gainesville. They have one in Ocala. They have plenty further south than that. They have 2 in Jacksonville. They have 1 in South Georgia. They have 1 in Tallahassee. They have 1 in Panama City. They've got the state covered. So even if we don't have the part locally, which typically we do, they are great about shipping stuff store to store. They're not in competition with each other. And then worst case scenario, Daikin's based out of Houston, Texas. They'll ship it in from there. So if we can't get one from the store, it's not a crazy lead time once it's produced to get it to us. So they have great parts availability. There's been some other brands that went and worked on that. I'm not throwing names out there at all, but those brands, they're telling us 9-10 week lead time, and so we try to stay out of that, to not get yelled at, to not let customers down. And the brand that we typically deal with does a pretty good job of keeping us from letting people down with parts availability. So how quickly can we get that part? Typically with Daikin, it's pretty darn quick. They cover the state really well.
Okay. All right, so install, that should be what you focus on first. Then your warranties and your ability to honor that warranty, because it doesn't, Tommy Boy said it best, right? A warranty is only as good as what's written on the back. So having a great warranty and then actually being able to get the parts for the warranty is important. I'll tell you, some of this stuff, I mean, we were chatting, some of this stuff, I used to work on my cars all the time. You know, I got a boat, give me a 4-barrel carburetor, I can get that thing running. You know, I can bubble gum and tape that thing together. My truck, it's a spaceship. You know, I open that hood and I just close it back and I drive it in, because it is, I mean, it's a computer on wheels now. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I assume your industry has made that same. What, I mean, how are you staying, okay, I can get the part, but how do you find out with some of this stuff what's wrong, or is it so complex that you just throw your hands up and go, ah?
Yeah, no, that doesn't happen. You know, so that's a great question. And with the government raising efficiency requirements, these units have gotten a lot more technological, exactly like your truck.
Did you just blame the government for all this?
No, absolutely not.
I'm putting you on the
It's
spot
just,
there.
yeah, no, I mean, you know, they decided to, you know, continue to raise the efficiency requirements, and, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. But on the other side of that, it does make our lives a little more difficult, because the bubble gum and duct tape and baling wire days are completely over. We've got, even the lower end efficiency stuff definitely has more technology than it did even 5 years ago. So get the stuff running with a scratch of the head, you know, and some duct tape is completely over. So points to that. What really helps us is the brands that we partner with offer a bunch of training. So we do invest heavily into training for our people. So the vast majority of the problems can be figured out on site at the time of service. But the secret weapon, and what really matters when you're choosing a brand, is what kind of tech support do they have? So Daikin being based out of Houston, when I call the tech support line, if that's the route that I go that time, completely relatable, understandable, the phone connection is super clear, and they're very knowledgeable. Even more important, we have regional tech support. We actually have a guy, so it's not a faceless guy. We have a guy that we can get on the phone with, help troubleshoot, the smartest guy in HVAC that I know. And if for some reason we're still having some sort of issue at that point, everybody has, you know, problem children when it comes to trucks, when it comes to cars, when it comes to AC units. And we don't have them very often, but we had one last year, and the guy actually drove in. He's for the entire region, but he drives in, lays eyes on it, realizes we're having a problem, replaces the entire system. Super rare, but to have a guy that I can call on the phone, I've dealt with in person, I've taken trainings with the guy, for him to be able to come out, lay hands on it, lay eyes on it, help troubleshoot it. Doesn't happen often, but that's a really good feeling, though. You have that safety net. And so when you're picking a brand, you need to pick a brand that has some sort of support similar to that. That would be the next thing for me. So tech support, the back end support. Do they know their own equipment? Some of these, you know, some companies are shipping them from China and they don't know their equipment. And, you know, and their thing would be, well, it's the cheaper line. We don't support that as well. Daikin, not to be a Daikin guy, but Daikin does a really good job of supporting their low end stuff to their flagship spaceship models like you're talking about. And we've got a guy for that.
So it probably felt pretty good. It sounded like you were messing with the system for a while.
Yes.
The HVAC guy comes in and says, all right, it's dead.
Yeah.
Replace it. And you're like, man, I'm glad you couldn't fix it either. Some sort of release, you know.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, you know, just to not paint ourselves as incompetent, that these things you talked about it earlier. We're talking about micro voltages and circuit boards and communication programs and software that's inside of the hardware that can be the issue. And so If it's anything fairly normal, we do a good job with that, but sometimes you need that guy. And we have that guy. That matters in a brand.
All right. So brand doesn't matter, but brand matters.
Well, but
So,
most times when people
it's a
are
big
asking,
old depends.
when they're asking that question, when
Right.
people ask that question, what they're trying to figure out is what's the highest quality brand that I can get. And so in that particular question, it doesn't really matter because the compressors are pretty much the same. The capacitors, the contactors, where they're assembled and where they're quality controlled changes. But so yes, brand doesn't matter when it comes to just the box. What's the best? It's hard to answer that question. What matters on the back end? Brand does matter.
So what I was surprised when we were chatting before this, HVAC brands are not far off from like cars. And what I mean by that is what you were telling me is there's like the cabal of HVAC, and then they have all these little fingers.
Yep.
So you got Ford Motor Company, and they got Jaguar and Lincoln and all their other brands, but it's Ford. And then you got, GMC, and they got their Chevys and formerly known Saturns or whatever, and they got their fingers. But there's the top line, there's not a lot of them. And that's the same thing with HVAC. So you said like Daikin, they actually have Goodman and Franklin and Amana and then Daikin.
Yeah.
And then Carrier's got a whole bunch like that too. But between like Carrier, you said Carrier, Johnson Controls,
Comfort Maker, Grand Air, those are all ICP products, which is Carrier, basically. Bryant, Payne, those are all. Lennox has, they do the Concords and a few other ones, American Standard. Now they're, not to bash on Train, but now they're pulling in the Run Trues that are technically under the umbrella, but those are made in China and shipped over. You're right, that York has a few of the other subsidiaries underneath York. So yes, there are, 5 or 6 maybe manufacturers, and then they have their
so there's 100 different brands, but in reality there's like 6.
Exactly.
Like there's 100 different car makers out there, but in reality they all funnel up.
Yeah, like Dodge is owned by somebody in Germany now, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, well, I think that kind of answers the brand. Is brand important question?
Well, I can wrap it up. Pay attention to the install.
Okay.
That matters more than the brand. Then the brand starts mattering. Look up parts availability, look up warranty, but how do they honor the warranty? Read reviews for specific models. And at that point, I think you're going to be in a good place to make a good decision based on brand.
Okay. All right. Well, you heard it here. That is Trey, North Central Florida Air Conditioning. Any other questions? Post it in the comment section. We will get it to him and he'll answer to you. Till next time, Alachua Home Pros.